kick us off. Those of you who get the weekly email, it's probably too grandiose to call it a newsletter that the three of us associate deans are sending out. Know that we've got some really significant grants that have been awarded recently. Aveta Salova, let's see who else. A whole list of folks. Elizabeth Frias, I don't have the list in front of me, received a USAID Educating the Future Activity Award for about 2.5 million over 3 years. So congratulations, that's really significant. Steve Zeiker, Stock Cloutier, Jessica Early received a grant of $783,000 from the Arizona Office of the Governor for a project called Teachers Connecting Campuses and Core Curricula. And Tara, who's here, wave your hand, Tara. Yay, Tara received for a collaborative proposal more than $3 million from the National Science Foundation for a project titled Black Girls as Creators, an intersectional learning ecosystem towards gendered racial equity in artificial intelligence education. Way to go, Tara. And Punya's going to be knocking on your door if he hasn't already. He saw artificial intelligence and he just said, whoa, I got to talk to her about that. So hooray. Looking forward to hearing more about that myself. Gustavo, you want to put a little plug in for the David Orr talk on Monday? I've got the link that I can put in the chat.
Yes. Iveta and Kerry from, I forgot the name of the new university, and another partner from Finland. They are going to be hosting a 1-hour lecture with David Orr. And there is the link. And it's going to have an additional activity that is the graduate students will ask questions or make comments, and those will be posted in connection with David Orr's activities. If people don't know, David Orr is a very influential scholar in the area of sustainability education, and he's going to be presenting an edited book about democracy and sustainability, and the president of ASU, Dr. Koro, has a chapter there, so it will be interesting. David is always a very provoking intellectual, so I look forward to hearing that, and please, if you can, attend.
Thanks, Gustavo. And let me put in a final plug. The link did not go in, but keep in mind, we want to know what everyone is doing so that we can publicize it, so that we can share it with marketing, so that we can help make connections. So please keep us informed by filling out the scholarship roundup survey. I put the link into the chat. It's a really, really helpful vehicle for us to keep on top of everything that's going on. So.
Betty, sorry, forgot to tell also that Tuesday and Thursday, we are going to have the 2 final candidates for the Presidential Professor of Practice for the idea of creating the Global Futures Education Lab at the college. We have the first 2 candidates this week. There were really spectacularly interesting ideas presented. So if you can attend and give us feedback about what you hear and what are your ideas about this lab. And with that, we could start with the questions.
Thanks, Gustavo. Yeah, that's really important, and I'll try to later on put some of the links and the information into the chat. The first 2 candidates who came in, really interesting talks, really interesting ideas. This is going to be, I think, a real a real asset in addition to the college as well as the university. So yes, but let's move forward. The topic for today is meet this year's Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College faculty recognition recipients. If you were at the all college meeting last Friday, you heard the first official announcement. We have 7 award recipients. For those of you who are unfamiliar with these awards, these are annual awards or forms of recognition given to Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College full-time faculty in a number of different areas that reflect kinds of work that I think, reflect the values of the university and of our college in particular. So of the 7 recipients today, we're fortunate to have 6. The 7th recipient, Juliet Barnett, was not able to be here because she is actually engaged in what she won the award for, which is connecting her research, teaching, and service. She's actually working out in one of the local schools, but she did create a video for us. I'm not sure if we'll have time to show the video today, but it is delightful, and we'll put a link to that up when we post the video of this session later on. So just wanted to recognize that. So we typically have an informal session or informal approach to these sessions, as I mentioned earlier, with questions for participants, and encourage you to post your own questions, comments in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand. Given that we have 6 folks with us today, we grouped our questions, and we have a single question that we'll ask each recipient to respond to, and they vary somewhat based on the nature of the award and the kind of work that each person's being recognized for. Before we start, let me just go through and announce all of the folks who are here today who we'll be talking to. Antonio Duran, Outstanding Early Career Research Scholar. Wave your hand, Antonio, so we can see. Yay, Antonio. Mirka Koro, Excellence in Research Achievement. Mirka, raise your hand. Meseret Hailu, Excellence in Research for Global Impact. Carlos Casanova, Excellence in Community Engagement. Shyla Dogan, Excellence in Integrating Scholarship with Service. Amy Bartlett, Excellence in Teaching. And as I mentioned, Juliet Barnett, Excellence in the Scholarship Engagement. So as you can see, a wide range of different sorts of awards and nature of the kind of work that they'll be talking about. So I can kick it off, Gustavo. The first question we have is for both Antonio and Mirka, and we're assuming you're approaching it from somewhat different perspectives, since Antonio, you're our early career research scholar, and Mirka, you've had a few more years in the field. But the first part of the question is, what motivates your work or your research? And then the second part, since both of you are highly productive, is how do you maintain your level of productivity and engagement? And I think that's a particular question for Mirka, from those of us who have been doing this work for a while. How do you maintain your motivation and your enthusiasm? So Antonio, why don't I ask you to address the questions first?
Yeah, well, thanks for creating this space, and thank you all for being here today. So a little bit about my work. It broadly kind of examines how students navigate, resist, and maintain joy in the face of oppressive realities, particularly focusing on the intersections of racism, heterosexism, and trans oppression. And so when thinking about the question, what motivates me, a lot of my work is motivated by the fact that these are experiences and structural realities that our students are facing day in, day out. And one can argue that they are becoming more amplified with recent sociopolitical changes, right? So looking at my work that examines the experiences of queer and trans students of color, thinking about, well, what does it mean for these students to navigate educational systems in places where racial truth-telling is being suppressed, as well as as anti-queer and trans rhetoric is being moved through the legislature. And so what does it mean for these students to be engaging with educational environments at this moment when we're seeing their multiple minoritized identities being targeted? And so that constantly motivates me to think about how can I move the needle toward equity for these students and with these students. I also am motivated by how students maintain resilience and maintain joy in these moments. I am currently in the fourth year of a longitudinal study with 13 queer and trans students of color, some of which one has graduated already throughout, and I started interviewing them in the first year of their college, and just hearing their stories along the way, the relationships they're making, the experience of getting on to interview with them and saying, we have so much to talk about, and then being happy to share about all the developments in their life motivates me. In terms of what keeps me productive, all of those reasons, but also community. A lot of the work that I do is in collaboration with people and with people who, I think are also motivated by similar values. And I always, jokingly and not jokingly say, like, I don't think I'm that smart. I just have been very smart to surround myself with some really amazing people. And so it's really humbling to be able to do this work day in and day out with people who I love and adore and consider friends. So yes.
Thanks so much, Antonio. It's such a delight to hear the word love pervading your work. We don't always talk about things like that in academics. And certainly the idea of community we talk about, but I think this real idea of distributed, it's not even just distributed expertise, distributed something else that's more inclusive. That seems like such an important theme. Mirka.
Yeah, thanks for giving the opportunity to kind of think about this. From my perspective, I'm leading scholarship. So scholarship and research and inquiry is with me in the grocery store when I cook, when I read news, when I talk to my family. And so the entanglement between life and scholarship, so then it's not like what motivates me to work, what motivates me to live. And that has been kind of really important to me. Other thing when I was kind of reflecting back on kind of my few years in academia was that there was this shift when I stopped thinking about my own achievements and my own CV building and my own priorities or my fame, maybe that's the way to think about it. And I yield to this collective process, and I started kind of foregrounding the relationships in my work. And I have always been a member of multiple different kind of learning and writing and research communities. For this presentation, I was kind of listing like how many different working groups or international collaborations from Australia to South Africa to Finland to UK to Brazil I'm involved. So it's almost like 10 different groups that are continuously producing and thinking with me. And many of those involve students. So there is that kind of continuous learning from the others that is just absolutely essential for me and foregrounding the community and decentering myself, my needs, my career has been absolutely essential.
Thanks so much. Actually kind of common themes across both what you and Antonio were saying in terms of that sense of embeddedness in community. And I guess given my current role, I just think about how much that can seem at odds with how we ask people sometimes to talk about their work and, in a very individualistic way. And like you were saying, Mirka, it's more about your individual theme, and kind of how you transition out of that, I think is really interesting. So, so thanks. I'm going to put a plug in. We asked folks to keep their comments short, so we're going to, try to have time for comments and questions near the end. And so just a plug for all of you here to add your own questions and thoughts into the chat. So, Gustavo, do you want to jump in with the next set?
Yeah, and this is for Meseret, Carlos, and Shyla. We would like to hear a little bit more about how you are engaging with stakeholders outside the ASU, advice, suggestions, and what are the challenges? What are the challenges, and how do you address those challenges? I have no order, but based on my screen, Shyla, you are first, then Meseret and Carlos.
Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me and not my husband who's also in a meeting. I would say you said to speak to the challenges and how we engage. I really am a community-oriented, person. Service means a lot to me, and working with the community means a lot to me. If I wasn't doing this, I would still be involved with the groups that I'm involved with. So I guess I kind of, in a similar vein to Mirka, I was really glad that she said that it's kind of what she lives. And I feel like there's a similarity there. For me, I try to reach out to different organizations and individuals. Like, I really like working with students, for example. And if I can't find people who are working on, similar things at ASU, then I reach out to students, or I respond to students who reach out to me who are not at ASU. And in terms of challenges, I think that some of the challenges I found have really just been related to getting out in the community, especially post-COVID. It's been a little difficult. I live quite far from the city center, as I'm in Peoria. And in a lot of spaces, people don't want to communicate over the internet or something. They want to sit down and have a cup of tea and talk face to face, and that makes the most sense. But sometimes it can be challenging in terms of scheduling. And also access can sometimes be a challenge too. But I try to be very upfront with people and let them know initially, right from the start, if my end goal is to do some kind of a research project, because I don't want anybody thinking that the reason that I have contacted them, been engaged with them, become an acquaintance or a friend to them is so that I can get my goals met in the end. So yeah, those are, and that can be challenging because sometimes people want to help and be a part of it, and sometimes they don't, and that's okay. I will keep it short.
Thank you. Meseret?
Sure thing. So I received the award related to global impact, so I'll speak to that. So for the past few years, I've worked pretty consistently with colleagues at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia, which is where I'm from, as well as colleagues at some public universities in Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. And then the funding that I received from NAED and Spencer will actually allow me to extend that work in private universities in those same three countries. And this past summer, I traveled to a few different places in order to lay the groundwork for research collaborations in Japan, Singapore, South Korea, and the UK. And in terms of how I cultivate these relationships and collaborations, it's just various stages of research, right? So writing articles together, grant applications, sharing my research on their campuses, attending workshops together, presenting at conferences together, that sort of thing. And I would say for those who are interested in this work, just building on what everyone else has shared, generally, team etiquette applies here, right? So being considerate, being responsive to people's emails and questions, staying in touch and cultivating the relationship, even like during the ebbs and flows of projects. That was especially important during a lot of the shutdowns during COVID on various campuses. And then, as my colleagues have already alluded to, being conscious of people's priorities and not just your own, right? So think about, are your colleagues and collaborators junior faculty? Are they at an institution with a lot of financial resources or very few financial resources? Are they able to travel, right? Visa-wise, that sort of thing. And I would also keep in mind that you can't have the same intensity and level of collaboration with all your colleagues at these different places at the same time. Which again is like very intuitive knowledge that I'm sure everyone else here already knows, right? So people in Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, I've been working with them for years, and I've known them since graduate school. So I feel like I can maintain and cultivate a certain level of productivity with them than I can with, for example, my colleague in Japan that I just met with for the first time a few months ago. So keeping, just sort of like managing your own expectations in that way. I would say the biggest challenge is definitely time and money. So the distance between me and a lot of my colleagues impacts how often we can see each other face to face, how expensive it is to be able to travel and work together face to face. And then even just like logistic things like time zones, and having someone always has to wake up early, right, to do Zoom meetings. And so figuring out that sort of rhythm. And then another thing I did not anticipate, but that I see is the different levels of clearance you have to fulfill for institutions in different countries, right? So the way the IRB is done here versus the way the IRB is done in Rwanda, for example, you can't ask about obviously race or ethnicity there because of like the recent history in that country and how wary they are of international collaborators. And I don't think it's a bad thing that they are wary, right? And sort of how stringent the process is for gaining access to those institutions and to those populations to do research. So that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money, right? But I think I think those are very big challenges, especially for faculty who are junior like myself. But it's worth it. And I think there's so much richness in thought and analysis and collaborations that come from people outside of the US, especially with my African colleagues. So I hope it does not deter anyone for people who are interested, but it does take a lot of time and money.
Thank you, Meseret. Very wise words there. And Carlos?
Yeah, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's nice to be here with everybody, and congratulations to the folks who got awarded and recognized this semester. For me, most of my work is in informal learning spaces, so primarily community-based organizations, after-school programs. So I think in those spaces, stakeholders are both the adult staff who are working in those spaces, but also they're the young people who attend these after-school informal learning spaces. And so I think within informal space, I think I engage and work with both of these groups in similar ways. So for example, up in Iowa and here in Arizona, we had to create, we worked together. I like to say we co-created an after-school program. So we came together to design the curriculum. We came together to design what are the roles and responsibilities of adult staff who come into the youth after-school program. We designed and co-created the teaching approach that would be used in these spaces. So, a lot of that time in developing these sort of key principles and practices of these organizations and informal learning spaces really takes a lot of time and trust and authentic caring that has to be reciprocated between the adults and the youth in those spaces. So when you're thinking about having 15, 14-year-old kids, young people, share their ideas with a group of adults, that can be intimidating at times. But if you show them, respect and love and caring for one another, I think that really opens up a space and it allows them to share their ideas, also challenge adult ideas as well. I think we go into the space as adults thinking we know everything what youth need, but I think it allows us to take a step back and yet let the young people really speak and share and design a space with us. What advice do you have for others interested in doing this work? A lot of what has already been said, and I think just to know that at least the work that I do in youth spaces, that the young people are coming to these spaces with, many beautiful and amazing talents and strengths and assets that they come from from their communities, from their homes, from their culture. And at the same time, they're dealing with, these structural and institutionalized oppression and injustice that they are constantly dealing with, whether it's education, healthcare, criminal justice system. So they come to these spaces with many sort of strengths and assets, but many issues that they're dealing with. And I think we as adults who do this work in these spaces, just really need to be able to, spend time and listen to them and care for them and show them that we're somebody who's going to stand in solidarity with them beyond the research and beyond the work that's going to benefit us as researchers at ASU. So what that looks like for me is when in the work that we do, if a lot of them have fear of going to protest and engaging in direct action, so they want us to be with them. So we go and protest with them. We go in and engage in critical action with them. So they see us standing in solidarity next to them. Some of the challenges that we face in this work. So many of the spaces that I work in, the goal is to develop young people's critical consciousness around these social, political, environmental issues that directly impact their lives and their community and their families. And so that can be a really daunting process for young people to start to unlearn already what they've been taught in the public school system, to really think about things in a different perspective and view that they may not be shared with them often, whether it's in school or in their community. So a lot of that triggers a lot of emotions, a lot of fear and anxiety and stress and worry. And so I think it's as us as researchers and community engaged folks, I think it's something that we have to really pay attention to is how this work and research that we're doing with them, not only, the knowledge production that it creates, but also their emotional and their sort of well-being and how that's impacted in these spaces. So
thank you, Carlos, and thank you all of you for sharing. Very insightful, and it sounds always amazing, the diversity of perspectives and approaches and modalities that we have in the college, and it's fun. I always learn something new, interesting, insightful. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, so I can jump in. Just before we move to Amy, though, one thing I find myself thinking about, and maybe that's because I'm thinking of Amy and talking about teaching next, but how you all came to be these kinds of scholars and engaged and, sort of, I don't know, really committed people in your work. I mean, how did that come about? And not that we can clone that or, transmit it to students, but how do we incorporate that in the work that we do with the folks that we're training, be it undergraduate, on through graduate school. But first, let me shift. As I said, I was thinking about Amy, because Amy Bartlett, who won the Excellence in Teaching Award, is the last recipient here. And the question for Amy we posed is to tell us a little bit about her teaching philosophy and why the elements of her philosophy are important to her. So, Amy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Betty. And, I was wondering the same thing that you just mentioned. How did everybody get into these different fields, and what inspired them, and how do they choose that path? They're all so very interesting and so diverse. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. Oh my gosh, I don't know exactly why I'm here, but I have been a science educator for the last 27 years. And with every year and every new experience, I think my philosophy changes and evolves. So I don't know that I can truly speak to my philosophy, because I think it's ever changing. What does stand the test of time, though, is my love of learning. And I think if I could win the lottery, I would just be a full-time student. But as an educator, that translates into my priority then centering on the educational experiences that I provide for my students. Are they high quality? Are they student-centered? Are they meaningful, engaging? Are they inclusive? And what brought me to science is it's just fun. I mean, it's everything that's around us. And to kind of take the baton from Carol in last week's meeting about noticing, it's noticing phenomenon in the natural world around you. It's things that we do daily, things that we don't even realize. My tree in the front yard dropped all of its leaves. And then now my front yard is littered with the twigs, that they were attached to. And I was thinking yesterday, why didn't they just fall off at the same time? But it's these things that happen, like temperatures. They feel cooler now this morning than they did last week, or this puddle pooling under my cup of water here. What is causing that? It's just these little things that we notice that ignite spark and curiosity in every one of us. It makes us wonder. It makes us ask questions, which then leads to, exploration and discovery and sense making. And those explanations, that sense making helps with building our connections and building a foundation that eventually, we stack more and more little blocks of knowledge upon. But it's this, essentially is what builds our knowledge of everything around us. It brings us awareness and empowers us individually, collectively. We're both learners and educators as we share our discoveries with one another, and it brings about change. So, at the same time, it's tentative, it's ever changing, it's never set in stone, which is kind of like learning and education too. So in terms of science is learning and learning is science. It makes sense. These are iterative processes here. They mimic that learning cycle. It occurs within us every day in every subject in every country, everywhere. It's all around us. So science is, again, with learning being for everyone, science is for everyone, just like, the opposite. We can go backwards in that. So therefore, it's really important that this noticing and this natural curiosity that each one of us has drives our teaching. Since that's what's driving learning, this needs to drive our teaching. So therefore, inquiry-based instruction has always been the focus of the science methods courses that I've designed and coordinated and taught. It's just not for science, or it's really for every subject, but that inquiry-based approach is really the focus that I have in my instruction and in my teaching. And I'm sure it's all about asking questions and collaborating and hands-on learning and exploring and discovering and making sense of, anything, real concepts in real time. But it's also about, explaining and then explaining our understanding and then connecting prior knowledge and teaching others. It's taking what we know and transferring it and applying it to new and challenging contexts. So in science methods, which is what I kind of head in a lot of different places, undergrad, grad, elementary, secondary, we proudly serve up those curiosity cocktails that Dr. Cantor coined last week. So it's really important to notice, but as important as it is to notice, it's also equally important to be noticed in education. Building those relationships with students is really crucial. It's those little things, it's knowing and using their name, or integrating their interests into lessons, knowing their interests, recognizing their contributions, holding them to high expectations. Last spring, I was in the grad program, and now I'm in the undergrad. But in the grad program, I kept hearing from a lot of students that the online shift, being all online, they were longing for the interaction that they used to have in their classes. So I had two courses running concurrently, one online, one sync, and I invited all those that were online to join us in the sync. And while only 5 of 40 took me up on the offer, they were so eager to once again be a part of live discussions and hands-on application and real-time learning. They had that renewed zest for learning, and we could see that, and they were very appreciative afterward in their thank yous. So anyway, I'm over time here, but as I reflect on my time in education and my philosophy, it really centers on the importance of, again, making science meaningful and engaging and inclusive. And it's the importance of noticing, but also being noticed.
Thanks, Amy. I'm going to remember that, noticing and being noticed. I think we have to tell Carol to add that into her introductions to this topic. So really cool. So let me take a moment, and including Gustavo in this, let's pause. And I'd like to invite any other comments or questions. I've got a few additional ones that I could bring up, even among our recipients. Do you have questions or comments for each other that you'd like to chat about?
I have a question. That's okay.
Hey, Amanda, yes.
And I'm sorry I'm late. Maybe this question was already asked. And if so, I apologize. You don't need to answer again. But congratulations, award winners. It's so exciting to see all of your good work out here. This is more of a personal question of like, how did you celebrate for yourself?
Great question.
After this, I'm going to get my roots dyed. So I'm very excited to get my hair done.
I'm thinking, Amanda, we need to plan a celebration given the silence here. My gosh. Carlos.
Yes, I left after the meeting, came home to the office, did a few things, and I was like, okay, I'm leaving. Went and picked up my daughter early from school and kind of hung out and celebrated with Frida and Josefina. So when they got something to eat, got a drink, and celebrated with each other.
Amanda, you ask a really good question. I'm not good about this. Whenever good things happen like this, I'm always very grateful, and I'm just like, okay, well, let's just put that to the side and keep going. I need to pause more often. So that's a good reminder. I didn't really do anything, to answer your question directly.
I'm with Meseret. I didn't do anything either, but am grateful. It's just kind of an expectation, I think. Well, not that I would get an award. Apologies. That I have high expectations of myself. So this is what I do. But I am very grateful for the recognition.
All right, Amanda, I don't know if this was the intent, but we're going to have to plan a celebration. It's really sad. I didn't think of asking that, but we're going to do something. So yeah.
A mentor is the one who once told me of like, we have to celebrate all the little things, even little, big, all in between, because life is too short. And so it's just a reminder, we got to celebrate all our good things, and we're cheering for y'all. So find some time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to be honest, Amanda, I did go to the local wine shop and said, do you have anything bubbly and yummy? So yes. But I also did, I picked up, I've been doing bobby lacing as a part of kind of a remembrance of Norman Denson, actually. So I was doing that also and had a little celebration with the family. So, good question.
Great question. Yeah, great question. Well, I can ask the question I had again, which is, and I don't know if you can answer it easily if it's possible, but sort of how did you come to be these amazingly reflective, engaged, committed, community-focused people? I mean, what happened? I mean, I don't think it was probably in your doctoral training, but maybe it was. Anyone care to try a response to this?
Can I just comment really quick?
Sure.
So I would say that for me, at least, it all started with like the things that I'm passionate about. And then my desire to go into academia kind of followed.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, if I wasn't doing this, I would still be doing something related to the folks that I work with and that I care about, and that, the stuff that I bring into academia.
Mm-hmm. Great observation, Shyla. Yeah. So yeah, that passion is a thread that informs, I guess it kind of goes back to something like what Mirka was saying about it being part of your life. You reinforce that too. Somebody else?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's rooted in my own experiences in public schooling. So I never felt like I was welcome in public school. I never really had teachers and educators who looked at me and really were pushing me towards academic success. It was always about sports and never really about college and achieving academically. So I never really felt like I belonged in school, and there wasn't many folks who I felt like cared about me in school. But at the same time, when I was younger, I'd go to these community it was like a I don't know what you want to call it, but it was next to the railroad tracks, and it was like I don't know, it was like it was a boxing club. It was just a one small room in the city that I lived in. They created a summer program. And so in elementary school, I'd walk and all my friends would go there. And there was just like two adults there who were college students at the time. In my local, there's a small liberal arts colleges. And they would go there and they would work with us and take us on field trips. They actually, introduced us to games, and they just made us feel like we were just really important people. And we just had really, they set high expectations for us. They were talking to us about academic stuff and really celebrating who we were and who we are in our community, like where we lived. It was like a block away. So I think that's what really triggered my work and interest in community-based organizations and in informal learning spaces. So, after I got out of high school, I went and I started, I have like 11 years of work experience in informal learning spaces and community-based organizations in Michigan, Texas, and Iowa. So it was never like, I'm going to become a college professor. It was always like, how can I get in training in order to become like a leader in a nonprofit community-based organization? So that's kind of, I think, what sort of, and then, then the training about youth participatory action research, reading literature about critical conscious development of young people and critical action, and these theories about youth work. That was kind of came in the doctoral studies, but I think my lived experiences of feeling like not belonging in schooling and finding places that I really felt like I belong is what it's rooted in.
Thanks for sharing that, Carlos. Yeah, that's really powerful. This power of your lived experience and who you were in shaping what you wanted to pursue. And then one day it sounds like you woke up and here you were, a college professor. Like, oh my gosh, how did that happen?
It's a whole nother story. It's a roller coaster. I'll share it one day.
Right. Anyone else want to share a story or a question?
I have a question for everybody. So, what was the biggest mistake that you made as a scholar, a researcher, and what did you do to, address it? Not to fix, but it's like, what happened? And if anybody answers, then I will tell you mine. But first, I need volunteers there.
Well, now I'm interested, so I'll share. I think, as I've mentioned, so much of the work that I do is in collaboration with others and in community with others. But early on, I think it was right after I finished my master's program, I was doing a collaboration with someone, and I realized that not all collaboration is generative, especially when you don't have the same commitments and values. Let's just say it's one of the few times that someone has like yelled at me during a meeting that we had about research, and I was like, oh, okay, it seems like we're approaching this from two very orientations. And so I don't know if this is going to be the most productive moving forward. So let's just say I've never worked with that person again. And I learned from it because now whenever I'm interested in starting a collaboration with someone, I ask a lot more questions around their commitments, their values, their processes, to try to avoid situations such as that. I know it seems like a simple mistake, but a mistake that will always stick with me. I will never forget that meeting and be like, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't have done this.
I can jump in. I think one of my friends once described my personality as a straight line, which I kind of resent because I don't think I'm like that. But like, I'm very literal. I like lists. I like procedures. I like going in the order that things are expressed. And that's not how society works in Ethiopia. And I think the first time I went to Ethiopia to do research, I think I was just constantly in situations where I would have like my little like documentation and be like, well, I did what I was supposed to. Like, why isn't this person here? Or, why is this guard not letting me onto campus to do my interviews? Or what do you mean? Like the building is closed. I felt like I was constantly frustrated. And I kept saying, this is so irrational. Like, why are things done like this? This is so irrational. This is so irrational. And my friend was like, well, if everyone is behaving that way and you're the odd man out, maybe you're the irrational one for not adjusting. And that helped reframe my thinking. And it sounds kind of silly to say, but working in Ethiopia, at least, I've learned really the power of, I don't know what the right word is. It's not being charming. That's slimy. And that's like an arrogant thing to be like, yeah, I'm really charming. But you have to just sort of read the other person's energy, sort of assess the situation, be flexible, go with the flow, and make adjustments as you go along. And that'll take you a much, much farther. Like it'll take you much farther than showing up with your checklist and your calendar invite and sort of like the tools that I use to sort of navigate work and life here. So I think that was probably my biggest research blunder. Once I think I took a more flexible approach, I think I was much happier and I was a much more pleasant collaborator.
Thank you.
have to
I
jump in
don't
and
see
laugh for a
you
minute.
as a straight line. So
You do or you don't.
I was going to say, I'm glad you jumped in on that, Gustavo. Gustavo, what was your mistake? Come on.
Oh, accepting that your advisor chair, your senior scholars have always the right decisions for you and not standing for, I think that you're wrong, and wasting year or longer in pursuing the wrong project when you really know that it's wrong. So in graduate school, my advisor told me the project that you have to do is to study how the female leaders, women leaders in teacher unions in Latin America are democratizing education. And I was like, no, that's, essentially is, and, maybe it's case by case, but no, he was absolutely sure that the democratization of education was due to the emergence of 5, union leaders that were women. And so I spent a whole freaking year doing stupid things until I said, this is wrong. The data doesn't show that. So I lost my advisor, but I gained freedom, but I lost a lot of hair in the process. So kind of, you can see now, it took me a while to be able to say, no, this is wrong. And sometimes I wonder to what extent we do the same with our students, with good intentions. In the case of my advisor, it wasn't good intentions, but that's another story. So that was I spent a whole year doing the wrong thing. Carlos was going to share his mistake, so please go.
Yeah, it was really quick. So this happened when I was doing my dissertation work, and I did a 4-year ethnographic community-based research project during my dissertation studies. And so, like, when I went to this community-based organization, my advisors give me readings about building and a lot of what everybody said here about the importance of building relationship, building trust. And so I'm in this space working with high school students, and they're primarily young women, young Latino women, undocumented, first generation, mixed status citizens. So they're coming from, just a wide range of different family dynamics. And so I'm in there working, and I'm, trying to build relationships with the young women. And I feel like I'm really building a relationship with the young men. We're having conversations, and, I was there for 4 years. So maybe in a year or two, there's a group of young women who they were freshmen when I started working, and they were seniors when I left. So by the time they were juniors, I felt like we had a really good relationship. They were coming up to me, we were talking, we were having good conversations, and they were inviting me to their families' cookouts, and I was like, okay, I'm good. We have a trusting, authentic relationship here. And so in my 4th year when I left, I did an interview with many of the young women, And I was talking to them about relationship building. And I was under the understanding that, we as researchers go into community-based organizations and we have developed these relationships. But when I'm talking to her in an interview, she said, you know what, at the beginning of the time when you came in here, she said, I didn't really trust you. I didn't know who you were. I didn't, we had to really see if you were really an authentic, genuine person, if you were going to be there for us, you're going to be here for the long run. And so she told me that she used to use strategies and techniques when I was with them in order to build relationships with me. So I was always thinking like, I got to go in there and build, but while I'm also building, the young people are also doing their own relationship building with me. And I just didn't really understand that at the time, because I was like, well, that's our role. And so it was really insightful for me to know that while I'm doing that, the young people are also doing that with me. So now when I go into spaces, I understand like there's this dynamic of relationship building going both ways. It's not just the researcher going into the space, building the relationship. So that was really kind of like a mind-blowing moment when she shared that with me. And she told me about what she would do, and she would bring a friend with her and sit at a table, but have a friend talk to me, and she would listen to how I talked to her friend and kind of gauge that conversation about if I was trustworthy and being real with them. So yeah, I just wanted to share that insight about kind of one of those experiences.
Do I have time to say one real quick thing, Betty?
Please do, Shyla. Yeah.
So just kind of in line with Gustavo and Antonio both, I think that one of the mistakes that I made that I only realized actually recently is that I allowed the things that matter to me and some of my research goals to be swayed by sometimes senior scholars who I thought obviously knew better than me because they've been in this longer than me. And it really, that realization allowed me to kind of take hold more of what mattered to me. And it had happened to me in a very similar way as you, Gustavo. Maybe that's why we both have anxiety around our hair today. But like I had professors in graduate school who, I don't know what was the obsession. I don't understand the obsession with Muslim women in hijab and oppression, like that kind of triangle. But they were constantly trying to push me into research projects and into doing a dissertation on Muslim women in hijab. And I was like, this is not what interests me. Like, this is what interests you because you want me to prove what you already believe. And I don't feel that like that's something that I want to engage in. And so I did have to stop working with some of those folks. But I didn't learn, as a professor, I didn't learn right away to really think about, okay, this is an interesting project that these folks have going on, let's say, but is it really what I want to engage in? And is it really speaking to what I love? So yeah, that was hard.
Thanks so much, Shyla. I feel like we're getting into really, really valuable stuff. And I would just say, as one of those senior scholars, don't listen to what I say or any of my peers. We have no idea what's going to be happening in the future. So trust your own judgment here. So anyway, love that. Love those comments. So I'm sad to say, yes, Maria, I just want to echo what you're saying. So proud of everyone and what you're doing. It is really a treat to have you all as colleagues. So I echo that for sure. And I'm just hoping we can have more conversations. There's so much more I'd love to hear from all of you. So another time perhaps, but just wanted to wrap up with a plug for next week's Just an Hour, in which we're going to be talking to folks from two of our Learning Futures collaboratives, from the Education Sustainability and Global Futures Collaborative and the Learn Network, the Learning and Educating Across Refugee Immigrant Networks, which some of you already are involved with. So please put that in your calendars if that sounds of interest. And I will just also add, where's the chat? We're posting this information on the My Education Hub. I know that's been coming up in more meetings, but we're really trying to use that as sort of a center, a hub, if you will, for all sorts of information. So please take a look at that, bookmark it, because that'll have a lot of announcements related to this and other events. Let me just put the link in the college. Gustavo, would you like to add anything to help us wrap up the session?
Not really. I'm always loved the just 1 hour, so I look forward to the next one and the next one and the next one. Final thing, please send us your updates with regards to your scholarship or interesting activities. If you are inviting somebody to do a presentation or you are presenting, share those materials with us or interesting ideas. That's it. Just on time.
Just in an hour. So thank you all again, and congratulations again to our award winners. I want you all to go and celebrate in some way, please. Thanks for that question, Amanda. Take care. Bye-bye, folks.